Eskimo dog. And then they looked at which pixel, and then for this example, the network actually failed. So this is actually a husky, and the network classified it as a wolf. And then they looked at what the network was looking at, and then they saw the network was just by doing a gradient backprop, and then they just found that it was just looking at the snow. So the network learned that most of the times wolf appear with a snow background, whereas the husky do not, with maybe green or net like a domestic environment. So that's what the network was looking, rather than looking at the features of husky versus wolf. So these are the things that we think that we do differently versus these algorithms, particularly the deep CNNs or like deep neural networks. And then, given all this, maybe we feel the networks are lacking some amount of common sense, maybe, so to say, that we human possess, like what to look at if we are given a particular task. It might be looking at something completely different. So maybe inspiration from the brain could help guide these networks toward more expected behavior, or guide these networks to look at things that we humans look at. So there are there are many studies which try to incorporate that. I'll just highlight one or two. But the goal of this workshop is, can we incorporate more ideas from the brain so that these networks see the world like we do, or make sense of things like we do, instead of just finding correlation between the training pairs. So this work, like a recent one, so they just took like some regular ResNet, LXNet, and this is a network with some recurrent connections from like within the layers called CoreNet. I think it is from the same group. So what they did, they took these networks and just replaced the first layer of this like ResNet, and replaced it with some simple and complex filters from V1 using some quick Gabber, and then some nonlinear and then one stochastic layer, and then just retained the later layers. That means only change the first layer of this ResNet, convert it with some this Gabber filters, and feed that into the second layer of ResNet. And then they tested this changed network versus the original on adversary, like the robust on the task of robustness against adversarial input. So they use the white box adversarial inputs, and you see the accuracy against this adversarial attacks, even for ResNet, is quite low, like 0.3. But with this replacement in the first layer of the network, the accuracy goes quite high. That means this kind of initial edges or these complex patterns are actually useful so that the network cannot be fooled easily. So one interesting example of how we can incorporate ideas from the brain into these networks. And this is one of our own work. So we had a CNN-based tracker to track any object. So you can just draw a bounding box across a person, and the CNN tracker would track just one object. And what happens is that during occlusion, so this study was about smooth pursuit modeling. During occlusion, the humans do not keep track of objects. They keep moving their eyes in the expected trajectory. But with this kind of CNN, tracking by detection kind of methods, with occlusion, they cannot keep on tracking. So we took some ideas from the frontal eye fields in the brain, and there are neurons there which are active or continuously firing when there is a smooth pursuit going on during occlusion. So this is the window. The gray area is where the object was visible, and it was not visible, but you see the activity is still higher than baseline for quite long. So to mimic that, we actually tried a recurrent neural network that fires spontaneously, and we were able to see this kind of spontaneous activity, and then which generated these trajectories during occlusion too. So briefly, so this is a robot we used, and then this is the camera feed from the robot. There's a camera on the head of the robot, and it is tracking this bounding box, this person, and the red one is the output of this model. And then you can see when this target is occluded, and now it is still visible, but as it is occluded, and then it made a jump. Like when this person target was not visible, the green box that is the output of the CNN tracker could not see the target, but the predictive one was still showing it. And this model was able to generate many various smooth pursuit behavior. So following on that, I'm pretty sure you all have seen so many examples of instances where computer vision was not able to solve something that humans can easily do. So there we have some like very great set of speakers who have done works to improve computer vision by taking inspiration from the brain. And today we are going to hear from some of these amazing speakers from all over the world. And unfortunately, they could not be here due to various reasons. So that's why like this session, the talk should be held virtually over Zoom. But all of you that are present here, if you have any questions, you can just come up here and ask them through the mic. So we have a few talks, then coffee break at 10:30. And it's, by the way, it's 9 local time, then more talks, then there will be a panel discussion, then posters. And then similarly in the second half, but there would be no more posters. And there will also be an award for best poster. So please do join the poster session. And if you have feedback, if you think some poster is really good, you can like let us know via email or chat. And we also have a special issue coming up based on this workshop itself. So the theme of the special issue is the same, but can computer vision learn from the visual cortex or visual neuroscience? And it is already open. So if you have a paper, you can already submit it, but the deadline is September 30. So I invite you all to submit your research. And this is a very old journal and very respected. So I hope you'll be interested. And thank you. So again, maybe I'll turn on the schedule. So that's all for the intro. And then we have Professor S.P. Arun from IISc Bangalore. He's up next. So thank you, Professor Arun, for joining. And